Two workers, same salary, same contributions, same 40 years. But one retires with around $120,000 less, purely because of the type of super fund they picked. According to Canstar's APRA-based analysis, a median income worker in a typical retail fund can end up roughly $120,000 behind a strong industry fund from lower long-run returns and higher fees. So which one should you actually be in? And when does the opposite answer apply? Stay with me, because the deciding number at the end surprises most people. This isn't a rounding error. It's the single biggest low-effort money decision most Australians never make. On a $100,000 balance, a fee of 0.50% costs $500 a year, while 0.80% costs $800, a $300 annual gap, according to industry fee data cited by MoneySmart. That sounds trivial, but compounded across a career, Canstar's modelling shows a 0.30 percentage point fee gap plus a 1.0 point return gap on a $70,000 salary over 40 years costs about $120,000 by retirement. And for our worked example later, the total gap climbs past $400,000, which is exactly why the profit model behind each fund matters so much. Here's the at-a-glance picture. Industry funds are profit to member and not-for-profit, returning surplus to members, and KPMG reports they grew to a 40.3% market share in FY25. Retail funds are for-profit, typically run by banks and wealth managers, and Canstar's data shows they held about 19.3% of total super assets as at March 2025. Neither structure is automatically right for you, so let's break down each side properly before we score them. Industry super funds are profit to member. They're not for profit and return any surplus to members rather than shareholders, according to Canstar and Australian Super. That structure suits the majority of working Australians who just want a solid, low-cost balanced or MySuper option they don't have to babysit. MoneySmart cited data shows many large industry MySuper options cluster near the 0.5% mark on fees. The trade-off is that they generally offer fewer exotic or highly customised investment menus. But for most people saving for a standard retirement, that's a feature, not a flaw. The strongest case for industry funds is net performance after fees. In the 5 years to 31 March 2022, money and retail funds grew an average 3.1% PA versus about 10.1% PA for the not-for-profit segment, according to Canstar's APRA-based figures. That 7-point gap is unusually wide because it captures the COVID shock and recovery, so a conservative long-run assumption is roughly a 1 percentage point higher net return each year, say 7.0% versus 6.0%. Industry super funds also state most of their funds have outperformed most retail funds over 5, 10 and 15 years, meaning more money in members' pockets after fees. Now the honest weakness, that headline 7-point gap of 10.1% versus 3.1% over 5 years is partly driven by specific market conditions, and Canstar is clear it's a short window that won't repeat neatly. Not every industry fund sits in the top quartile either. Averages hide laggards. So while the structural fee advantage is durable, past outperformance is never a guarantee of future returns, and you still have to check that your specific fund and option are among the strong ones, not just the sector as a whole. Retail super funds are for-profit, commonly run by banks and wealth managers, and they return profits to the parent company's shareholders, according to Canstar and Australian Super. They suit people who genuinely value a broad, sophisticated menu of investment choices or want their super bundled with financial advice. Since APRA's performance test began, several retail funds have also sharpened their pricing. The core tension, though, is baked into the model. Those profit-making margins on administration and investment management ultimately answer to shareholders, not members. Retail's real advantage is flexibility and choice. If you want direct shares, tailored portfolios, or an integrated advice relationship, the broad retail menus can deliver something the leaner industry, MySuper options, simply don't. For an engaged investor who actively manages their allocation, that optionality has value. But be honest with yourself, MoneySmart's guidance is a reminder that more choice also means more ways to end up in a high-fee option that quietly drags on your balance for decades. The catch with retail is the average outcome. Comparable balanced options have historically carried higher fees, think 0.80% versus 0.50%, and delivered lower net returns, which CanStar attributes in part to that fee drag and the for-profit margin. Apura's performance test has forced weaker, high-fee funds to improve or merge, which helps. But if you're in an older, expensive retail legacy option, you may be paying a premium for a menu you never actually use. That's the trap the numbers keep exposing. Let's score this on the numbers. On fees, MoneySmart cited data puts a typical industry balanced option near 0.50% versus 0.80% for a comparable retail option. That's $500 versus $800 a year on a $100,000 balance. On long-run net return, CanStar's conservative modelling uses 7.0% for strong industry funds, against 6.0% for the average retail fund. And on profit model, industry returns surplus to members, while retail returns it to shareholders. On these four criteria, industry takes every round, but the next set is where retail claws some back. Now the criteria where retail competes. On raw investment choice, retail's broad menus win: direct shares, niche portfolios, and more. On advice access, retail funds often bundle integrated advice, which suits people who want that hand-holding. On flexibility, I'll call it a tie. Industry funds have widened their options while retail still edges ahead for the truly hands-on investor. So this isn't a clean sweep, it's genuinely about what you value. Before I get to the deciding number, here's the round tally. On the scorecard, Industry Super wins the rounds that move your final balance the most. Fees, long-run net returns, and profit model, all backed by CanStar's APRA-based figures. Retail wins the rounds about choice and advice access, with flexibility a tie. In other words, industry leads on the money maths, retail leads on features. If this breakdown is useful, subscribe. There's one like this every week. Here's the single number that decides it for most people. Take Sarah, 35, on $90,000 with $120,000 already in super and $10,350 a year going in. Using CanStar's modelling, staying in a 6.0% retail path projects to about $151 million by 65, while a 7.0% industry path projects to about $1.93 million. That's roughly $420,000 more from one switch under conservative assumptions. For anyone in a standard balanced option, that gap is the whole argument. So who wins? For the typical worker in a standard balanced or MySuper option who just wants low fees and strong long-run net returns, a strong industry fund has historically been the better fit. CanStar's modelling suggests around $420,000 more for someone like Sarah over 30 years. For the engaged investor who wants direct shares, exotic options, or bundled advice, a competitive retail fund can genuinely be the better match. But this is general information, not personal advice. Always check the PDS, compare fees and past returns for your specific option, and consider your own circumstances. Crucially, not all industry funds are top quartile, and not all retail funds are expensive, so compare the actual products, not just the labels. Here's your quick decision guide. Choose a strong industry fund if you want the lowest fees, a set and forget balanced or MySuper option, and you care more about net return than menu size. That's most people. Choose a retail fund if you actively want a broad investment menu, direct shares, or advice bundled into your super and you'll actually use it. Either way, Verify before you move. Check your fund's PDS for its total fee and 10-year net return. Then benchmark it on the ATO and ASIC Your Super comparison tool inside MyGov, and confirm your option passed the APRA performance test. If this helped, do the 2-minute check. Pull your PDS, find your fee and 10-year net return, and compare it on your super through MyGov before your next pay hits. Next, I'm breaking down exactly how to switch and consolidate your super without losing insurance cover in the process. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because that one mistake can quietly wipe out the gains you just fought for.